Hey, it's Dave Salvadore of Blueline Gaming. Thanks for coming back to my channel. We have been playing a lot of Marvel Crisis Protocol. I've gone to a couple of events at the local game store. I've been painting tons of miniatures. The last thing I painted was the Quinjet, and I thought it'd be cool to create a whole board themed after the Shield Helicarrier. Now this is going to be a speed build to just get something on the table. It's a super simple board that I'm sure that you could make at home. So let's get right into it. I started the build by cutting out a 3 foot by 3 foot square piece of 1/2 inch XPS foam. I drew up my center line onto the board and then used a dinner plate to draw the circle that would be the Shield logo. I decided to make the board into 2 pieces that linked together with the logo so that I could transport it and store it easier. I then installed the screws and magnets like I did on my previous Marvel Crisis Protocol board build. I used a light grit sandpaper to take off the smooth texture on the surface of the board. Then I used various tools to add some weathering to the surface of the board. Then it was time to base coat the surface. I used a 50-50 mix of Mod Podge and craft paint to give it a nice coat of black. I used a smaller dinner plate to draw on with a pen, a helicopter landing pad, and then I also added some panel lines. Then I began to dry brush on various shades of gray to give it a weathered runway look to it. I simply added lighter gray to each pass to slowly build up the texture. Then I masking taped off 2 areas of the runway so that I could dry brush on a lighter gray to give it variation and contrast to the deck of the Helicarrier. Since this is a speed build, what you're watching in this video is about 12 to 16 hours of work. The next step was to airbrush on the comic book look and feel using my halftone templates. I cut out some small square pieces of prime styrene and glued them to the board to add some panel details to the surface. The slowest part of the process was to mask off and airbrush on the runway lines. I used a light gray primer for this instead of white so they wouldn't be too bright. I then painted on some bright orange details like the Helicarrier. Then I added some light gray halftone to the light gray areas of the ship and weathered it down using a brush. Using black acrylic ink, I went back in and added some of that comic book line work. The final step was to create templates for the helicopter pad and the Shield logo. I did this by printing them out onto label paper, cutting them out with an X-Acto, and then airbrushing on the colors. Airbrushing on the Shield logo was definitely the most nerve-wracking part of it because it was the final stage of it and I wanted to get it right. I first airbrushed on a gray primer and then the orange color so that it would really pop. Hope you guys liked watching that video. If you wouldn't mind subscribing to my channel, it'd really help me to grow. Until next time, keep painting, keep gaming.